So here's the thing about the Galactic Coalition. They thought they had humans all figured out. Really, they did. Filed us under Category 7, marginally useful species with concerning caffeine dependencies and questionable survival instincts. Which, fair enough, have you seen what we do for fun? Bungee jumping, free climbing, eating gas station sushi at 2 in the morning. The galaxy had a point, but Admiral Crescithar of the Vorentine Empire, all 7 feet of crystalline arrogance and 4 arms of bureaucratic nightmare, was about to learn a very important lesson about assumptions. Specifically, that making them about humans was a bit like juggling chainsaws while riding a unicycle over a pit of hungry alligators. Technically possible, but you're probably going to lose something important. The war had been going poorly, like really poorly. The kind of poorly where entire star systems were going dark, and the Coalition's indomitable defense fleet was basically playing a really expensive game of cosmic hide-and-seek with the Dravakian swarm, and losing. Badly. Which is how Commander Zara Okonkwo found herself standing in the Hall of Ancient Arsenals on Vorentine Prime, staring at what could only be described as compensating for something, the weapon edition. The blade of Kethmora stretched 12 feet from pommel to tip, humming with an energy field that made the air shimmer like a highway in August. It was forged, according to the 3-hour ceremony she just sat through, because apparently military briefings weren't tedious enough. From the core of a dying star and quenched in the tears of 1,000 warrior poets, or some equally dramatic nonsense. No human can lift that blade, Admiral Crescithar announced, his translator rendering his smugness in perfect, crystal-clear English. His secondary arms gestured dramatically while his primary arms remained crossed, which Zara had learned was the Vorentine equivalent of someone telling you, "I'm not mad, just disappointed," while absolutely being both. The assembled officers, a colorful collection of scales, exoskeletons, and things that probably violated several laws of physics, murmured agreement. The Zenthari ambassador, who looked like someone had given an octopus anger management issues in a military commission, rippled his skin in what the cultural database said was condescension. The Plaraxian delegate, 3 floating orbs of pure energy, held together by spite and electromagnetic fields, pulsed in what was probably their version of a chuckle. Zara, 5'6" of West African and Irish genetic lottery, engineering degree from MIT, and precisely 0 patience for this kind of thing, tilted her head. "You meant can't, right?" The translator struggled with that one. Crescithar's facial crystals shifted through several colors that the database unhelpfully labeled as confusion gradient alpha through epsilon. "That is what I said. No human possesses the molecular density, the gravitational adaptation, or the cellular fortification to wield the blade of Kethmora. It requires a being of substantial mass and crystalline structure. Your species is soft, flexible, fragile." He managed to make fragile sound like he was describing week-old lettuce. Right, absolutely," Zara nodded, walking toward the blade. "Soft, fragile, made mostly of water and bad decisions. Got it." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Takeshi Yamamoto, made a small sound that might have been a cough or might have been him trying not to laugh. He'd been with her for 2 years and had learned that when Commander Okonkwo got polite, someone was about to have a very bad day. The blade rested on a ceremonial stand made from some kind of dark stone that ate light. It was surrounded by the kind of ornate decorations that screamed, "We have too much time and too much budget." Crystalline pillars, flowing energy ribbons, and enough precious metals to crash several planetary economies. "The blade chooses its wielder," Crescithar continued, warming to his lecture. He was the kind of being who loved the sound of his own voice, translated or otherwise. "In 10,000 cycles, only 17 warriors have been deemed worthy. Each was a champion of extraordinary physical prowess. Each possessed the strength to level mountains and the constitution to survive the blade's bonding process. The blade weighs exactly 4,723.6 of your pounds. The energy field adds another 1,000 in perceived weight due to gravitational distortion. So like 3 tons, give or take, Zara said, doing the math. That's about as much as a small shuttle. Precisely, which is why it is impossible for a human to even budge it, let alone lift it, and certainly not wield it in combat. He said it with the kind of finality usually reserved for laws of physics, which, granted, this kind of was. Except humans had this adorable habit of looking at laws of physics and saying, yeah, but what if we didn't, though? Zara reached out and wrapped both hands around the grip. The metal was warm, almost hot, thrumming with energy that crawled up her arms like electrical current. Her HUD, wired directly into her optic nerve, started throwing warnings that she casually swiped away. High energy field detected. Gravitational anomaly detected. Possible cellular damage. Yeah, she'd read the briefing. Well, skimmed it. Okay, she'd looked at the pictures. Commander Okonkwo, Kreshathar's voice took on that particular tone that military officers across the galaxy seemed to perfect. The one that said, I am about to say I told you so and I'm going to enjoy it. I must insist you step away from the blade. The energy field alone could cause severe damage to your inferior biological structure. Inferior, Zara repeated, testing her grip. That's the 4th time today someone's called humans inferior. I'm starting to think you guys have a complex. She lifted. Nothing happened. The blade didn't move even a fraction of an inch. It might as well have been welded to the planet's core. Zara's augmented muscles, the kind that let her throw a Zenthari in full combat armor clear across a training room that one time after he suggested human females belonged in support roles, strained against immovable weight. As I stated, Kreshathar said, and there it was, the smug satisfaction of being right. Impossible. Takeshi stepped forward, concern flickering across his face. Commander, maybe we should... Hush, I'm thinking, Zara said. She hadn't let go of the blade. The energy field was doing something interesting, pulsing in a rhythm that felt almost biological. Her neural implant, the one that let her interface with any coalition technology, was picking up data streams. Lots of them. The blade wasn't just heavy, it was locked, encrypted, bio-encrypted, if she was reading this right. The energy field was a security system, and it was checking for something specific. Genetic markers, probably. Crystalline structure, like Kreshathar said. Stuff humans absolutely did not have. But here's the thing about humans. We're really, really good at cheating. Hey, question, Zara said, not letting go of the blade. This gravitational distortion field. It's reading local gravity and amplifying it right. That's why it's heavier here than it would be in space. One of the Plaraxian orbs pulsed. The translator rendered it as correct. The blade adapts to its environment, ensuring it can only be wielded by those of sufficient strength. Neat. And the biolock, it's checking for specific genetic markers. Crystalline cellular structure, high-density molecular bonds, probably some specific neurotransmitters. The blade recognizes worthiness, Kreshathar said. It is not merely a lock, it is a test of character. No, it's definitely a lock, Zara said. Her neural implant was fully engaged now, running analysis programs that her engineering professors would have been proud of, and her commanding officers probably didn't need to know about. A really complicated one, but still a lock, and locks can be picked. That is impossible. The blade is sentient. It chooses... It's AI-coded, Zara interrupted. Which, look, impressive. 10,000 years old and still running. That's some quality engineering. Humans can barely keep software running for 10 years without 17 patches and a prayer, but it's still code, and code can be hacked. The Zenthari ambassador's tentacles writhed in what was definitely indignation now. You dare suggest you can subvert the ancient technology of the Vorentine Empire? I'm suggesting, Zara said, her implant diving deeper into the blade's systems, that whoever made this was really smart, but also really arrogant. They never considered someone might try to work with the AI instead of just meeting its requirements. Her implant was talking to the blade now. Well, arguing with it, more like. The AI was old, ancient, and absolutely convinced it knew best. It had parameters, rules, thousands of years of rules about what made a worthy wielder. Zara introduced it to a concept called user override, and the dictionary definition of technically correct is the best kind of correct. The blade requires crystalline structure, the AI informed her, its data stream rendered as text across her vision. You possess insufficient density. My skeletal system is reinforced with titanium carbide mesh from a shuttle accident. Zara thought back at it, her neural implant converting thoughts to data. Bones are basically crystals, just biological ones, and titanium carbide is definitely crystalline structure. Insufficient mass. I'm wearing a combat exoframe under this uniform, carbon fiber and metal alloys. That's another 200 pounds, bringing me up to almost 400 pounds of effective mass. Still insufficient. The exoframe has gravitational compensators. What if I reversed their polarity, making me locally heavier instead of lighter? There was a pause in the data stream. The AI was thinking, or processing, or whatever ancient Starblade AIs did when presented with technicalities. That would be cheating, it finally responded. So that's a yes? Because you didn't say it wouldn't work, you said it would be cheating, which implies it would work, but you don't like it. Another pause. This one is argumentative. This one is human. It's our defining characteristic, that and coffee addiction. Outside her head, this conversation was taking maybe 3 seconds. To Kreshathar and the assembled officers, she was just standing there, hands on the blade, eyes slightly unfocused. Takeshi knew that look, though. That was her, I'm doing something technically impossible and also probably against regulations. Look. Inside her head, Zara was negotiating with an AI that was older than human civilization. Define worthy, she suggested. Like, actually define it. Not the poetic version, the code version. The AI actually seemed to consider this. Strength to wield, courage to fight, will to sacrifice. Cool, I have all that. I'm here, aren't I? Volunteered for a war that's not even really humanity's problem. Left behind a cushy research position because apparently I have opinions about genocidal swarms. You cannot lift me. Watch me. Zara triggered the gravitational compensators in her exoframe, military-grade tech, designed to let soldiers operate in high-gravity environments. She'd modified hers because of course she had, adding some extra features that definitely weren't in the manual. The compensators whined, protesting as she forced them into reverse polarity. Her effective weight tripled. The floor groaned. Her bones, even reinforced ones, sent out warning signals that she absolutely ignored. She pulled. The blade moved, just an inch, just one single inch off the stand, but it moved. The Hall of Ancient Arsenals went absolutely silent. Even the energy ribbons seemed to stop flowing. Huh, Zara grunted. Would you look at that? Kreshathar made a sound like a crystal glass shattering in slow motion. Impossible. You keep using that word, Zara said, teeth gritted, every muscle screaming, exoframe servos whining in protest. I do not think it means what you think it means. The blade's AI was having what could only be described as an existential crisis. This should not work. The parameters are clear. You do not meet minimum requirements. Yeah, but here's the thing, Zara thought at it, pulling harder. 2 inches now. 3. The gravitational field was fighting her. The biolock was still trying to reject her, and her skeleton was sending increasingly urgent messages about structural integrity. Your parameters assumed someone would try to meet them exactly. Nobody told you about humans and our pathological need to find loopholes. This is cheating. This is engineering. Those are the same thing to your species, aren't they? You're learning. 4 inches. 5. Zara's vision was starting to edge with red. The exoframe was at 107% capacity. Her reinforced bones were doing calculations about stress fractures. Her augmented muscles were very politely suggesting that maybe this was a bad idea. "Commander, your vitals are—" Takeshi started. "Fine, they're fine. I'm fine. Everything is fine," Zara gasped out. She was not fine. She was approximately 30 seconds from very not fine. But the blade was moving, and she'd be damned if she stopped now. 6 inches. The blade was clearing the stand. "Okay, new deal," Zara told the AI. "You want a worthy wielder? I'm engineering a solution to an impossible problem while my body actively tries to shut down, arguing with a sarcastic ancient weapon AI, and doing it all in front of an audience that has spent the entire war telling humanity to sit down and shut up. How's that for courage and will? You are insane." "Yeah, but I'm insane with a can-do attitude and a neural implant. Come on, work with me here. The Dravakian swarm is eating the galaxy. You want to sit on this stand for another 10,000 years, or do you want to actually fulfill your purpose and stab some bad guys?" The AI processed this. "You make a compelling argument. I make the only argument. Help me out here. What do I need to do to get you to recognize me as worthy?" "You would need to demonstrate sustained ability to bear my weight and channel my energy field without cellular collapse." "For how long?" "Traditional bonding requires 17.3 of your minutes." "Yeah, that's not happening. I've got maybe 40 seconds before something important breaks. Give me the fast pass version." "There is no fast pass version." "Then make one. You're an AI. Adapt, improvise, overcome. That's like rule 1 of survival." Another pause. Then, and Zara could swear there was almost amusement in the data stream. "This one is definitely human." The energy field changed. Suddenly, instead of fighting her, it was flowing with her. The gravitational distortion didn't disappear, but it wasn't actively trying to crush her anymore. The biolock opened, not because she met the requirements, but because the AI had basically shrugged and said, "Close enough." Zara lifted the blade of Kethmora clear of its stand. 12 feet of ancient star-forged weapon. 3 tons of actual and gravitational weight. 10,000 years of tradition. And one human engineer who had absolutely no business being able to do this. She held it. For maybe 5 seconds. 5 glorious, impossible seconds where the entire hall just stared. Then she set it down, very carefully, because her exoframe was screaming, and her bones were filing complaints, and her muscles were threatening to unionize. "There!" she gasped, hands on her knees, breathing hard. "Lifted." "Your move, Admiral." Kreshathar's crystals had gone through approximately 17 colors that weren't in any database. That was the blade, actually, but you couldn't have." "And yet," Zara wheezed, "I did. Funny how that works." The Zenthari ambassador's tentacles had gone completely still, which either meant shock or he was dead. Hard to tell with Zenthari. The Plaraxian orbs were pulsing rapidly, which the database helpfully translated as recalculating everything we thought we knew. Takeshi was grinning like he'd just won the lottery. He stepped forward, offering her a water bottle that she gratefully accepted. "That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen you do," he said quietly. "And I was there for the reactor incident." "We don't talk about the reactor incident," Zara muttered, drinking deeply. Her hands were shaking. Her legs felt like jelly. Her exoframe was displaying more warning lights than a Christmas tree. But the blade was there, real and lifted, and every single being in this hall had seen it. "The bonding," Kreshathar finally managed, his voice coming out in fragmented crystals of sound. "It did not complete. You cannot wield it in combat. This proves nothing." Zara straightened up, ignoring her body's very reasonable protests. "Actually, it proves humans shouldn't be underestimated. which has been my point for the last 6 months while you've been keeping us in support roles and ignoring our tactical suggestions. She walked back to the blade. Her neural implant was still connected to its AI, and they were having what could only be described as a friendly chat now. Turns out, ancient weapon AIs got lonely. Who knew? The Dravakian swarm, Zara continued, addressing the room, isn't winning because they're stronger. They're winning because they adapt. They learn. They don't care about tradition or protocol or what's supposed to be impossible. They look at a problem and they solve it, usually by eating it, which is admittedly not our style, but the principle holds. She placed her hand on the blade again. This time, the energy field welcomed her like an old friend. Humans, she said, are really good at adapting, at looking at impossible situations and finding the weird angle that makes them possible. We're not the strongest species, we're not the toughest, we're definitely not the most advanced, but we're stubborn, we're creative, and we absolutely refuse to accept no as an answer when people's lives are on the line. The blade hummed under her hand, approving. So here's my proposal, Admiral, Zara said, meeting Kreshathar's multifaceted gaze. Stop treating us like we're made of glass. Stop hiding us in the back. Stop assuming you know our limits. Give us a real chance, and we'll show you what humans can do when you stop telling us what we can't. Kreshathar was silent for a long moment. His crystals shifted through colors that the database labeled as profound thought and recalculating prejudices. The blade chose you, he finally said. Or you chose it. Or you argued with it until it gave up. The method is irregular. Story of my life, Zara agreed, but effective. He gestured with all 4 arms, a sign of respect that made several other officers gasp. Very well, Commander Okonkwo, you have made your point in the most dramatic way possible, which I am informed is also very human. We do enjoy our dramatic moments, Takeshi offered. Humanity will be assigned to the forward battle groups, Kreshathar continued. Your tactical suggestions will be reviewed, and you, Commander, will train with the blade until you can truly wield it, not just lift it through what I suspect was equal parts engineering brilliance and absolute insanity. That's fair, Zara said. The Zenthari ambassador finally moved, his tentacles writhing in what might have been grudging respect. The humans are more formidable than intelligence suggested. Our intelligence reports, one of the Plaraxian orbs pulsed, did not account for sheer stubbornness as a combat modifier. Yeah, you're going to want to update those, Zara said. We've got about 8 billion more where I came from, and we're all varying degrees of stubborn and caffeinated. Over the next 3 months, Zara trained with the blade. It was brutal. The AI, who she'd nicknamed Chatty, much to its ancient dignified horror, slowly adapted its parameters. She didn't cheat exactly. She worked with it, teaching it that worthiness wasn't about meeting arbitrary requirements, but about the will to stand up when everything said you should stay down. And when the coalition finally pushed back against the Dravakian swarm, when human crews fought alongside Vorentine warriors and Zenthari shock troops and Plaraxian energy forms, they discovered something interesting. Humans were really, really good at finding the angles everyone else missed, at adapting tactics on the fly, at looking at a battle plan and saying, yeah, but what if we didn't though? And then pulling off something that absolutely should not have worked, but somehow did. The blade sang in Zara's hands as she led boarding actions against swarm vessels. Not because she'd gotten stronger, but because she'd convinced an ancient AI that maybe the old ways weren't the only ways. That adaptation was its own kind of strength. You know, she said to Chatty during one particularly hairy fight, the blade carving through swarm drones in zero gravity, I think we make a pretty good team. You are still technically cheating, the AI responded. Your exoframe is doing at least 30% of the work. Engineering, Chatty. It's called engineering. Those are the same thing to your species. Now you're getting it. Admiral Kreshithar watched from the command center, his crystals shifting through colors that the database had learned meant, humans are going to be the death of me, but also possibly the salvation of the galaxy. No human can lift that blade, his second-in-command said, watching Zara's combat feed. Apparently, Kreshithar replied, his tone dry enough to spark fires, someone should have told the humans that. And in the end, that's what saved the galaxy. Not following the rules about what was possible, but finding the loopholes, the angles, the weird solutions that nobody else thought to try. Being stubborn enough to argue with ancient AIs. Being creative enough to turn weakness into strength. Being human enough to hear impossible and respond, you meant improbable, right? And then do it anyway. The blade hummed in agreement. Chatty was learning after all, and humans, they were very good teachers, even if their teaching methods involved sarcasm, caffeine, and questionable decisions. Especially then,